Hi everybody, Paradox2767 here, coming to you with another 16 LEGO Hogwarts mock ideas. So I'm basically going to be presenting these mocks in rough order of worst to best as far as I'm concerned. There might be a little recency bias there, but you please let me know whether or not you roughly agree with my rankings, or I'd love to know your favorite down below. A big focus I had when I was making these different mocks is different ways I could use the limited parts I have, because those are always the types of YouTube LEGO videos that really get me most inspired. And so I bought, I think, a total of 3 poly bags for these mocks. One that had Draco in the Forbidden Forest, one that had Cho Chang at Quidditch practice, I think, and then another one that had Hermione Granger, which I covered in a prior video. If you want to go check that out, it has another 8 mocks that I built. But basically, besides those 3 poly bags for a total of $15, the rest of this I had in my collection. So there's going to be a lot of older bricks because I haven't collected LEGO too fastidiously lately. Some creative parts usage. That, you know, not too many updated building techniques will be used here potentially, but maybe you're able to also get some ideas for your maybe older collection of Legos. Oh, I should also mention there was a pick-a-brick sort of container, probably about this size, that I got from a local Lego store that I just filled with like tan big bricks and flame elements. I forgot to mention that. So probably a total of about 20 bucks went into these mocks, and everything else I already had. So let's just get right into it. From, in my opinion, roughly worst to best. Let's see what we have here. Now, like my last 8 mocks, which you should be able to find on my channel here, all of the ones I've built today are also designed to fit into LEGO's new Modular Hogwarts system. And so as we go, I'll show you how these new mocks fit right into this Quidditch practice castle, and would also fit into the new Hogwarts Great Hall set. So, as you've heard me say, if you've seen any of my previous videos, to fit in LEGO's new modular Hogwarts system, all you really need is an 8x16 base plate, and to make sure that you have a couple holes for some pins in the back, which are these ones on the bottom. And if you stick to that general rule, plus there's of course a height restriction. I think this is maxed out height right here. If you stick to that general rule, you'll be able to fit each of the mocks you make into LEGO's new Hogwarts modular system. So I basically, with this set, really wanted an excuse to make that like kind of lacquered black brick flooring that occurs at the Ministry of Magic, but I didn't, I couldn't figure out a way to incorporate that obviously into the Hogwarts castle until I remembered Dumbledore's pensieve. So this mock is supposed to be able to be kind of seen both ways, or in 2 different dimensions. Basically, I see it as Dumbledore looking at his pensieve here, and then when he sees his pensieve, he kind of falls into the scene of, I think it's like Igor Karakov's trial at the Ministry of Magic. And so here, even if it's not necessarily movie accurate for them to have the black tile at this point, I really wanted to see how many black tiles I had basically and make the floor that way. So that was really satisfying, and from there the rest is just sort of decoration. So we have a seat where Dumbledore might be sitting behind kind of like a decorative place, and then I built this simple cage for I think his name's Igor, for him to sit and be on trial. So hopefully you can kind of tell how I made it there. And then, very simply, I have just the cage here. There's not, I don't think, technically room for a minifigure. Maybe he'd be really cramped in there, which would be just like the scene, so that would work out. And then when it's up this way, I've kind of figured this pensieve sort of looked like a lighter. That's what my wife said. So I actually, originally it was white and it was a bit distraction, so I turned it into a dark gray pensieve, and so it blends in the seat a little bit. But yeah, the idea is you walk up to the pensieve this way, and then you fall into the scene, and here you are. So that is the first mock. This next one is actually the most recent one I built, and definitely when I realized, okay, I think I'm pretty much out of bricks that I can use. So you can see I use a lot more black elements here than some of my other mocks, because I was really running out of the gray pieces. But the whole idea of this one is, basically, this is a panel, or a wall from a prior castle that existed before Hogwarts time. It was donated to the school, likely by some Slytherin or who knows, and then it ends up being haunted. And so when students walk past this kind of like haunted part of a castle, they can hear the ghosts and things within trying to get out. And in my headcanon, this is sort of like during the Battle of Hogwarts, maybe some of the ghosts are coming down and they said, you know what, we've been jerks to the students, but it's time to defend our school. So these are supposed to be ghosts from, a bygone era that are coming to defend Hogwarts, and they're floating out of this haunted panel of wall. And so I kind of represent ghosts here and in one other of my mocks by just Lego torsos on some clear bricks, so they kind of look like they're floating, and hopefully, they're coming up the stairs there. Hopefully it sort of looks like the guy in back is kind of floating down from his wall, and they're all coming into battle. Mostly, I was really interested in using this wall panel here, so I wanted to find a way to incorporate that. And it was a little tricky because it's an 8 wide base, and this piece and these pieces of this style are only 5 wide. So I kind of have a couple jumper plates and a way to kind of wedge it in there. I had to use an arc to not, interfere too much with the rest of the build. I've got a few weapons on the wall. Hopefully, from the back you can kind of see the way I was able to trick that kind of odd-shaped piece into cooperating with the rest of the set. So that was the main focus of this build. I really wanted to use that piece for something because I had this really cool dragon piece that really spoke to me like Hogwarts. So there's our second mock of the day. Next up, I have a small little vignette that to me shows Draco Malfoy looking for the sword and shield of either Salazar Slytherin himself or maybe another famous Slytherin. So I kind of have him here like in the dungeons of Hogwarts perhaps. He comes into like kind of a restricted area and with his lantern and his wand ready, that comes from that polybag I mentioned earlier of Draco in the Forbidden Forest. He's trying to find the sword and shield of Slytherin, so he comes here maybe with a magic spell. He removes the secret panel of this wall, and there it is, the sword and shield of Slytherin represented there. And so I was able to use these little kind of funky brick elements, and that's sort of what I was trying to represent in that sense. Down here, it's kind of a dungeon area of the school, I figure, so there's some bones of hopefully not a former student, but some former victim, and then in that cage, quite hard to see, are a couple of lime green snake elements that I also got recently from that brick store. I threw that in my pick a brick box basically. So that was kind of what I was trying to represent there, really wanting to use this Slytherin element of course. So kind of figured that was a decent way to do it, and with a little play feature along with. Next up we have the Office of Umbridge. I really wanted to use these green flame pieces that I had, so I figured, okay, I'll use the Floo Network. But I was like, well, within Hogwarts, where's the Floo Network used but Umbridge's office? And so I decided to build her office. I wanted a really ministerial kind of stoic brick background for this fireplace, so hopefully that gets across. Like she's very no nonsense. So even though there's these pink elements here for her chair and some of the props and things like her lamp and maybe even use the pink for the window, I wanted the rest to be very like dour. And so I've got these flame pieces here because when you're a student sitting here, you're in the hot seat basically, and I've got her desk and a piece of paper and a enchanted quill for you to write I must not tell lies, or who knows what else you'll have to write on this paper while you're on this uncomfortable seat with the flames around and Dolores pleasantly smirking at you the whole time. So kind of a simple little build, but I used like this technique I got from a brick dreamer. He uses it sometimes, but basically to make it look like there's a gradient from light to dark, I used the lighter green bricks in the back to hopefully look like the hotter part of the fire is lower down on that flue fireplace. Next up, I've got a birthday party for one of the ghosts at Hogwarts. I think this was inspired. I think there's a chapter in the second book where this basically happens. But we've got a house elf here making sure everything goes right. And then these are two of the people in attendance. Maybe that's the Ravenclaw ghost. This might be the Bloody Baron. I've got kind of like a green-themed Baron ghost there. They're talking and having a good time. But a couple details I wanted in this scene. I used a lot of floating elements to make it look like these candelabra things were floating. The barrels are floating, the people are floating, and even the gift here. These are some chains that one of the ghosts is giving to the other so they can jangle it in the, kind of a la the ghost of the Weasley house. Kind of jangle some chains and freak out a student. This is a floating present that one of the ghosts is giving the other, and they can, go figure, guess what's inside, even though, it's a clear container, so it wouldn't be too hard to imagine what they're getting. And then we've got a barrel here of just some putrid smelling rotten beer, so we've got like kind of a stink line, and that's in fact what this ghost is supposed to be drinking, just like a green nasty amount of whatever kind of sludge they've got barreled there. We got a rat coming down, because only a rat would be the only living creature that could stomach some of the smells coming up from this place. I'm sure this isn't really meant to be Dobby, but I think he works at Hogwarts for a time, so maybe he is making sure things go smoothly and making sure some of these candles float and setting the scene. And then last but not least, kind of the first part I built on this set is just this putrid food swinging serving table. So I tried to get a bunch of the different nasty looking food elements. None of them were so I was pretty proud of that, but basically just any kind of gross like rotting food look I could manage in Lego. I threw on some circular studs or plates there to make it look like, okay, it's just like a nasty rotting mess. But I think the ghosts like that because it's hard for them to taste food, otherwise it has to be quite pungent and nasty. So anyway, here is a ghost's birthday party. Next, we've got kind of a secret or unknown about window, and it's one of the best spots in Hogwarts Castle to watch Quidditch matches. So I don't know which character in your mind would know of this little spot. Maybe it's in a tower high up somewhere. You sneak up the stairs and you're able to catch a great glimpse of the Quidditch match. And in fact, here it looks like a Slytherin seeker has just caught a golden snitch. So good for her, and she's smiling at maybe a couple of her buddies here watching her perform. And so in the back here we've got just a very simple build for the Quidditch pitch. This is so low on my list because a lot of this was actually from that polybag with Cho Chang, a little bit modified. And so I've got the Quidditch player on a clear brick to make it simulate flight, but otherwise I added a little bit of the force in the back of the school. But some of these like hoop techniques and these different houses viewing platforms, those are all straight from that polybag. So basically I was just beefing up a polybag in this one. But I did add a few elements for the different house colors on the sides and on the bottom even, because I was kind of geeking out about all the different colors of flags and stuff in there. So basically, yeah, this is just perhaps a Slytherin Seeker's friends coming to check out her great performance. She's flying up to get a high five from them. This next one, super not canon, but it's basically an animagus class underground being taught by a young pup, Sirius Black. So in this reality, it's like Sirius Black here in puppy form, because he's still a student, learned how to turn into an animal, and he's like, well, this is so handy. Not only should the Marauders know how to do this, I better teach this to some of my fellow students. So he's teaching 13, I think, of his fellow students here how to also turn into animals. So I try to make it look kind of, it does open up, so there's that kind of play feature to see it a little bit better. Here's a student turning into a squid. At first I wasn't sure how I was going to use this like kind of octopus piece, but I threw him on the wall that way so he's able to look that way. So I was glad to do that. Got like a boarded up archway here because it's a part of Hogwarts students really aren't supposed to be at, but you know, Sirius Black, he's kind of a rule breaker. So I've got, these are all meant to be animagus students. So we've got a couple snakes, an owl, scorpion, beetle, a dragon there. I got a parrot in here. It's kind of hard to see and a bit hard to open, but there's some of those older Lego snake or spider elements. There's 4 students in there learning how to turn into spiders or not. And then this student, unfortunately, a little unfortunate for him, he's turned halfway into a stingray, but he's not quite perfected the art yet, so he's half stingray, half student. And then this little build here, it's meant to be actually kind of like a spell that they've devised to, it's both providing UV light for the plants below and probably watering them. Even though they're in the deepest dungeon, they're able to grow what is supposed to be mandrake. So in the Hogwarts Legacy game, you talk to, I think her name's Nat's Eye, and she tells you that part of the way to turn into an animagus is keeping the leaves of a mandrake root in your mouth for like a month straight. And so that's what that's kind of like an underground little, you know, club for turning into an animal. That's what this one's meant to represent. Next up, this one's kind of odd, but I've got like Neville's, not office, I guess. Maybe like he's moved aside his 4-poster bed, moved everything aside so he could focus on his studies here in a corner of the Gryffindor Tower. Or maybe he's been given a corner of a room of requirement to use. It's definitely a Neville vibe here. And so you got his like sort of desk here. You got a ton of plants because he's been studying up. Maybe when he becomes a professor at Hogwarts for herbology, this is what his study would look like. You could kind of mix it up in a few different ways, but we've got like what I'm calling a choke cherry because it looks like you can pick the fruit off this plant, but it'll fight back. A couple different random bushes, and then we've got like a lounge chair for him to just collapse in. What really makes this Neville's office is that there's a little toad piece here. I got that idea from a comment on my last video, so shout out to that person. And then we've also got some just out-of-hand vines. What happened here is that I was running out of arch pieces and tan pieces definitely, so I had to get kind of creative for the archway into the office. But this one really, of course, wasn't doing it for me, just being so squared off. And so I added these green elements so you could barely notice. We've got this kind of golden bulbed green vine thing that just got completely out of hand and is in fact invading Hogwarts, as we'll see in the next mock. Here is my greenhouse mock. This one also opens up, and so you've got a kind of a view from the outside where you just got the simple glass windows, and then once it opens up you see that in fact that golden bulbed green plant situation, that vine, is invading even the greenhouses, so all of Hogwarts is completely covered. I guess Neville's probably a student in this case, so let's go with that. Got a couple of yellow banners in the window for Hufflepuff yellow, and then otherwise you've just got a ton of different plant elements. So I've got this vine hanging off the wall with some flowers here. This one's probably my favorite here. It's hanging upside down, so there's like a little method by which to feed this specific plant. It's a blue flower, red thorns. Leave a comment if you know what other fantasy movie has blue flower, red thorns. Blue flower, red thorns. Got a couple of bushes and vines and things like that. So this was just a way to incorporate a bunch of plant elements, basically. And then these windows open up, so, you know, if there's any venomous tentacula that Mr. Slughorn needs clipping from, he's able to get that as needed. This is probably my favorite of the plant builds. It's kind of just like those cherry pieces, but all clicked together in a crazy manner, so it makes this little really funky sort of bush situation. So kind of a simple build for the greenhouse. This is an atypical flower for them to be growing in the greenhouse, but there was a order for white lilies, actually, white flowers, and we'll figure that reason out in the next mock. So here is our divination classroom, and these are those white flowers that were ordered by Professor Trelawney, let's just say, because she knew that the students were going to need some white flowers because of a grim prediction she's made, but let's get to that in a second. Here I've got this dragon element again that I really wanted to use, so I just used it as the archway into like Trelawney's office, let's just say, and I've got these purple drapes. Did what I could there to make Lego into drapes. There's a lot of different ways to do that. I mean, if you look at some of the other videos online here. But so yeah, I just kind of wanted to make it look as divination-y as I could. Here's Trelawney's students' tables, so they each got their own little mini crystal ball and a little pad for them to sit, just kind of a smattering of tables there, keeping it with a messy vibe. Kind of an homage to OG Lego Harry Potter by just having a clip and a flame piece here. So that doesn't bother me at all, because it just, to me, kind of blends the eras, especially with like these old dragon pieces here and these old flame pieces mixed together with some new elements like these silvery balls. It kind of just brings the whole thing into like a weird era of Lego for me, and I like a couple crystals, because, you know, it just seems like something Trelawney would also, like, you know, put a lot of weight into, crystal reading and things like that. Just a couple greebles in a glass. But here's why Trelawney needed the white lilies, is because she predicts a very, very grim future. There's skeletons in the future of their class. So here these students are, you know, minding their own business, going to herbology, then coming to Trelawney's, and then they're getting this terrible grim prediction of, you know, no, you're going to see a lot of skulls today. And so here's your white lilies, kid. It's been nice knowing you. But as per usual, Trelawney was a little bit off. In fact, the skeletons that she predicted for the class were accurate, but there were just all the skeletons to be dealt with in Defense Against the Dark Arts. So here's my Defense Against the Dark Arts class. This is a werewolf teaching class, because, you know, Hogwarts be hiring werewolves to teach this class. Got a couple just creepy elements. I really wanted to pack this mock with creepiness. So this professor, he's kind of getting distracted by his next meal in his hands. There's something to gnaw on, a bone that he found in the bin of bones that he brought in for class, and so isn't really paying attention to what's happening in front of him like he should be. But this class, he brought in a bunch of normal white skeletons, and so that's what these bins were filled in initially, and then he cast a spell to turn this simple little this simple build for like a skeleton in a classroom, it turned it animated and evil. So part of the course was, okay, we're gonna see how to deal with the spell when these skeletons turn evil, but unbeknownst to him, the ones in the bins even are also turning evil. So this one's kicking his feet, this one's peeking out, ready to cause mischief, and so this professor is very quickly going to lose a hold of his class. And then in the back, so I've got, this is like the lectern from which the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher teaches, little opening there for them to get down, and then I've got this Indiana Jones skeleton skull element there, just as a, you know, a little prop that he brought into class to spice up the visual interest while he's teaching there. And then in the back here, in the hollow podium, we've just got a little cabinet for some more Defense Against the Dark Arts props. So we've got a couple, looks like potions, a scorpion, and a snake. Just little creepy things that this hypothetical professor uses in his courses. So after a crazy day at herbology, then divination, and then Defense Against the Dark Arts, it was time to return to our common rooms, basically. So this is, of course, the Ravenclaw common room, and I've got Cho Chang here doing some studying at one of the desks there, and it looks like one of those skulls from Defense Against the Dark Arts actually followed her home, if you look at the detail by the fountain. So I tried to pack as much as I could in here as far as details. Of course, with the 8x16 grid, it's a bit of a fun challenge. So here in the back, I've got some decorative pillars. I've got a bust here of, in my head, a former Ravenclaw adventurer guy who was sticking the Ravenclaw flag in whatever mountain or crazy cavern he ended up finding. Got a couple blue flags for Ravenclaw. Added this nice little kind of crown piece up top, because I knew I wanted an archway but didn't have that in white. And then I've got, so here is a sort of a study table for some of the students. We've got quill and some drink to keep you going. It looks like kind of like a study light. Maybe there's a little receptacle for you to cast Lumos into, and that can keep your homework glow. And then we have here a fountain, because it seemed kind of a austere and Ravenclaw to me. And then of course here we have a bit harder to see potentially, but we've got a trophy case. So that's what's supposed to be represented here behind Joe here. So we've got, this is like, best, birder of the group, maybe kind of reward. Here's a little micro figure award. We've got a Ravenclaw shield there. And these are some different little sort of silvery, greebly things, just to look like some of the awards Ravenclaw's won. Because as some of the more studious students at Hogwarts, it would make perfect sense for them to have plenty of awards. So here she is crammed between a bust, a fountain, and a trophy case, just so she can get a little work done. And in my head, this study table extends far into the common room. This is actually a broken shield piece. This piece with the raven down there didn't have a handle anymore, but I was happy to fit it in with that grill piece to kind of put it into place, and I was able to use that piece anyway. So that's the Ravenclaw common room. Now it's time for another common room. Can you guess which house's common room this is? Sorry for the Hufflepuff hate, though I really don't have to apologize too much, because if you are a Hufflepuff, you probably can't figure out how to use a computer enough to check out this video. R.I.P. No, JK, but this is my Hufflepuff, slept on common room, and they're like stuck between a rock and a hard place at this point. It's really cramped because, they probably had some sort of flooding, being halfway under the water line at this point, so they're having to be stuffed as a group into this really crummy common room. And so here we have some bins of like dirty clothes that are being brought down by the house elves. There's even like a little like old sock element here. So this is, the laundry area of Hogwarts, the hypothetical laundry area. And then, they're using these like upturned crates as ways to eat out of like saucepans. This bird has to be kept on top of a crate, and it looks like it's made a bit of a mess already. This garbage bin is where they keep all of their hate mail as Hufflepuffs. Here's the one plant they tried to grow and it's like dying. These little pop socket things are a little, they think it's like a big, school competition of like, oh, let's prank each other. But really it's just all the other houses throwing dynamite in the Hufflepuff room just to try to mess with them. Here's a banana peel, hopefully to get a Hufflepuff to slip. This is, speaking as another student, of course, I wouldn't always harm on any Hufflepuffs just for being Hufflepuffs. It's not their fault. Here's a banner of all the house colors because they asked Filch, hey, can we get just the Hufflepuff pennants, not the whole school, so we can get the school spirit. And he told them like, oh, they haven't invented just Hufflepuff one yet, so you just have to deal. So this is the Hufflepuff underground kind of pitiful common room. And then this one in Ravenclaw, I made Slytherins as well in my last video if you want to check that out. Just a quick detail of that common room. And lastly, we'll do Gryffindor, R.I.P. Hufflepuffs. So here at last is Gryffindor's common room, the final of the four. We've got an obnoxious amount of Gryffindor pennants, so it's just like completely covered in red because they're so obnoxious about being great and being in Gryffindor. This is a seat where you're meant to count your royalties, because if you're playing like Dean Thomas or Seamus Finnegan, you probably made a lot more money than the girl who played Cho Chang, because we're Gryffindors, we make all the money. So there's like some money scattered all about this place. This is a bin where they keep all of their rubies and other sorcerer's stones. Back here is a stack of maps for all the like main character adventures they're going to go on. Here's a map looks like they dropped. And then over here, they like to put their drinks on just like another golden chest full of royalties. And this is a big bin where they throw out all their fan mail because they just have too much to read. So this is just my obnoxious, very red, very proud to be Gryffindor common room. Next up, we've got Snape's office during finals. Okay, so I wanted to use this little line piece, and I thought it was fitting for Snape's office, because if you remember in my last video where I did 8 of the mocks, in his potion closet, he actually has a burgundy carpet. That was on purpose too, to show like a little bit of secret loyalty to not Gryffindor itself, but to a Gryffindor, aka Lily Potter. So anyway, this is his office during finals. I'll also open it up so you can get a bit of a better look. I've got here just kind of a creepy like potions master Greebles. So we've got an old, probably wicked wizard there in the form of a bust. Got a safe here where I think he's got a couple coins, probably getting bribes from the students to try to do better on their test. A cauldron, a spider up here, and then some potions and things. And then here is a cabinet where he told all the students to put their potions when they were done making them for final. So when Snape left his office, he had an empty cabinet and just a single correctly made example potion here. It's red and orange. Now, if you see though, a lot of his students have messed up terribly because most of them came out yellow instead of red. Looks like 3 students did all right. The rest spent most of their time figuring out how to best bribe Snape to get a decent grade on the test. And I'm guessing it probably won't work. Maybe for this Slytherin student who gave him a scale model of one of the Slytherin Hogwarts viewing platforms. But for the other customers, they're gonna have a hard time, I bet, convincing Snape. He's even got a potion to, get through all the crazy gifts that have been left for him. So as you see, it looks like he's observing a potion now that gives you a total of 9 failed students, and so instead of studying, those students tried to bribe him, so we have 9 bribes here crammed onto his crazy desk. So we've got ice cream here, we've got like a Reese's peanut butter cup there on the back of his desk. We've got one student didn't realize, whoa, you guys are bribing? I didn't realize that. So they sent an owl to risk life and limb around all these like venomous plants to deliver kind of like a love letter to Snape. It looks like a muggle boy must have left him an apple. We've got the potion that he's grading right now, yellow, so they must have failed. They put in too much or too little of an ingredient. Like I said, a couple of kind of poisonous looking plants, things that you could probably use in potions. Another little like kind of peanut butter cup way in the back there. So just a cramped desk of all the gifts of students trying to bribe Snape. Like I said, maybe the Slytherins will have some luck. The rest are probably out of luck. So this is this very cramped but kind of fun potion cabinet and desk area for Snape. And then last but not least, I know this cramped mess looks totally crazy, but let's explain. Basically, one reason this one's my favorite is because I was pretty much out of elements that spoke Hogwarts to me, so then I had an idea, well, if I had anything fantasy, I could use those in the form of paintings at Hogwarts. So what you're looking at now is 2 paintings that are preparing for battle against each other in the Hogwarts hallways. And so I think it's a little inconsistent how paintings work in Hogwarts, but I know at least in one, people can jump from painting to painting. So in this version, these 2 paintings are about to do battle. And so we have 2 framed photographs. One is a much bigger portrait of lost a piece there because it's a couple things are just sitting down, but we'll get that back in there. One is a portrait of a mummy lord guy, this dude, and he has discovered an artifact that will actually bring more skeletons to life. So a bit tricky to see, but there's him, his other mummy assistant, and they're pulling out another of those black skeletons from just a chest piece. But basically, he's going from painting to painting, gathering an army of undead because he's going to take on his opponent. So back here, I've got like an Indiana Jones Egyptian piece. I've got a sword, a giant ant, snake, just like some kind of Egyptian feeling things. Got some sand color just splashed on the ground there. And then these gold 4 jars are supposed to be the 4 canopic jars of mummification. So each of those, I just did like a little different design. And so this is just like the mummy scene. And this mummy lord, he thinks he's got this in the bag. Because when he looks at his opponent, it's just one little king and a small little portrait in a forgotten corner of the school. And this mummy lord's like, dude, you're screwed. One thing I was pretty proud of is that these studs fit right into, like, it still closes perfect because that fits into the giant negative space left by this frame. And then his artifact that he was discovered to raise the undead in paintings, it fits perfectly into that king's portrait. So there's no issue as far as closing the back. And then we'll get over to the king's side. Now, he's acting like he's putting on a face like, oh yeah, maybe I'm totally screwed. But in fact, he's got this bad boy in the bag. Because with the power of the paintings of Hogwarts, he was able to build his own army. So here we have a general of his who's screeching to his men to get ready for battle. This is the piece that fell out. It's just some of the gear. So we've got gear for battle. We've got swords and helmets and shields crammed in this box, even some more outfits. And then this is his general. And you're thinking, well, why is he green? Well, all of his army is going to be green because he found himself a bucket of enchanted green paint. This is an assistant of his who's painting with a green paintbrush, painting more army men as they go. This guy's struggling to get all of his gear on right away, getting ready for battle. We've got like a coat of arms of the king's there and his royal sword. But basically, this one human king, he's painting himself a massive army. You got this paint bucket there. So he's going to do quite well against his mummy counterparts. So yeah, this one's very, very cramped and convoluted, but I liked it a lot because if you had like, it's kind of like the ghost one I had at the start, where there were some dragon knights, and I was like, how am I going to use these? And I just turned them into night ghosts. Like if you had mummies or you had orcs or something that doesn't quite fit into the Star Wars, that doesn't quite fit into the Harry Potter canon, why don't you just put a frame around them and call it a painting? Like mummies don't speak Harry Potter to me, but it seems totally plausible for Hogwarts to have like a mummy painting in their school or like a king painting in their school, even though I didn't have room for a knight in like a normal Hogwarts scenario. So yeah, this one I was really proud of because there was a lot of like piecing together. I'm not going to take it apart to show you too much because it's very cramped and hard to put back together, but basically I had to use a lot of the negative space, like I said, to close it properly and all. So those, that is the final, and I think maybe my favorite of this insane set of mocks. So that again was my collection of mocks. I really appreciate you taking the time to check this video out. Like I said, I'd love to know your favorites, and hopefully I inspired you to get building yourself. If you have any other ideas for mocks, my collection's pretty much tapped. I separated all the tan, the gray, the dark gray bricks out, and did what I could. After this, though, I was pretty much completely all out of ideas. So I'd love for you guys to build some on your end. And if I inspired you, please let me know down below. And have a great day. Happy building, and peace.